I'm Juan Francisco, and I'm a psychic medium. I'm here with you to explore your intuition, the supernatural, and self-empowerment. This is Third Eyesight. Hey party people, hope you're doing well this week. Welcome to another episode of Third Eyesight. I first want to say that I have this idea I want to share with you. So, you podcast listeners, I am thinking of putting together a free group mediumship reading on Zoom with you. And I would like to publish that group Zoom reading on the podcast so that people can hear what a group mediumship session sounds like. And it's not going to be edited. I want to have all the no's, all the awkward silences, all the beautiful moments, all of the above in there. I want to have them in there. So if you're interested in being part of a free evening of a group mediumship reading, please go to juanfranciscospirit.com/podcast group. I'm also going to link that in the show notes in the podcast episode description. Submit your name, only your first name, your email, and you're just going to you say yes, I agree to a paragraph that says how I'm going to use the audio and the video of this group reading on the podcast, on my website, and then submit. And then I will have your name so that when I start to plan this group reading idea, you'll get a notice about it. And it will probably happen within the next few months. So right now we're in the month of, are we in June or July now? Because I'm recording this way in advance. But whenever this comes out, it will happen within the next few months. I promise, okay? So juanfranciscospirit.com/podcast group. Let me know. I want to address today a question from my dear follower on Instagram, Josie, who's been such a big support of what I do on Instagram. Thank you so much, Josie. And she asked, what happens to our loved ones after they die, after they pass? And there's so many ways to answer this question, or rather, so many different angles from which to address this question. So I am going to first of all, just share some personal beliefs of mine regarding the other side and death and heaven, because I think they will inform first just how I approach this topic, okay? So I will say that as a psychic medium, when I've done readings for folks, I have never felt like there's not one soul I have channeled so far who has made me feel like they're in a negative place, like they're in a bad place, including souls who have apologized for wrongdoings to the person that I am speaking to, who have taken responsibility for not being a good father or emotionally supportive, things that maybe we feel would make them not a great person. I've never felt a soul being in a negative place after death. When I have been in haunted places for paranormal investigations, maybe once or twice, I felt like there was a soul in the room, on the property, who decided that it was best to stay in the physical world. So I just believe that heaven exists. I believe it's just called heaven. But I feel like also by calling it heaven, I mean, heaven is a good place. It's all of love. But there really isn't anything that exists that isn't in heaven. I believe it's all around us. And I believe that when we die, I believe that some of us decide that we want to stick around on earth because we're very tied to our materialistic objects. We're tied to our egos that we had in the physical body. So let's say you're at a old colonial haunted house, and there is a gentleman who haunts the house and kind of causes a ruckus. Maybe he decided that his role in life as a general was so important to his ego, or that he had some unfinished business and he wants to stick around on planet Earth in his home and wants to try and finish that business. That doesn't mean they're stuck. It doesn't mean the soul is stuck on the physical world. It just means I believe we have a decision to make. We can decide to stay on the physical plane as soul beings, or we can decide to move on to the light. And I do believe that sticking around on the physical plane as a soul being has more to do with ego and less to do with punishment. That's my personal belief. That may change because I used to believe that souls got stuck as ghosts on Earth. I used to believe that. But the more I've listened to other psychic mediums whom I trust, and the more I've done readings as a psychic medium, the less I believe in souls getting stuck as a form of punishment. I also don't believe in hell. The main reason I don't believe in hell is because I used to believe I was going to hell as a gay person. I went through a born again Christian phase and I tried to pray my own gay away because I was really afraid of going to hell. Even without having sex with any man, just being gay, I was afraid of going to hell. And I don't quite understand, personally, the concept of an unconditionally loving God having a condition. Doesn't make any sense to me. I don't believe how an all powerful supreme being could create human beings with the free will choice to do wrong and then punish human beings for doing wrong. Doesn't make sense to me. So I believe we're all here to learn something about ourselves, to learn how to get closer to love. By becoming physical, we have even though love is all around us, becoming physical it's almost like a forgetter. We come into the physical world to learn what is not close to love. It's like, and I believe someone, think maybe it was Haley B on Opening the Door podcast, said something like this, that in order to, in the darkness, to know where we are in the darkness, you have to turn on a light. And it's only in the darkness you can see the brilliance of the light. And I believe that is true of the physical world. We come into this physical world to believe the illusion that we are separate from the light, only to then find out and discover that the light is within us, and that's why we're here. So, what happens to us? What happens to your loved ones when you die? In my readings, I have mostly had messages from spirit saying that when they've, let's say, they're passing, actually from anything at all, doesn't matter what the circumstance has been, when the moment comes that their body stops living, their soul immediately goes into the other side, immediately feels free. And sometimes there's a tunnel of light, sometimes they're greeted by loved ones, sometimes they just feel, they have the feeling of immense love and light surrounding them, and just utter peace. In some circumstances, in readings, a soul has said that they were going through a life review. And now time does not exist on the other side. That's hard for me to conceive, even as a psychic medium. And I'm sure maybe not easy for you too. Time does not exist. However, for some reason, some souls have said they're in utter bliss and peace, and they're currently in this phase of reviewing their life. They're currently in a phase of reviewing the actions that they made that may have hurt other people, that may have hurt my client that I'm speaking to. And so it's almost like a waiting period, but it doesn't mean that they're blocked from the light, that they're blocked from peace and love and God. It's just a moment of reflection, a moment of soul growth. The soul is going through an evolution so that the next time the soul comes back, if it so chooses, it can do better. Or that it can find a lifetime to live next in which it will need to learn how to make better decisions. So those are the two feelings I've gotten. And they're not mutually exclusive. They're not opposites of each other. One is just immediate bliss and peace and love, and the other is all of that, the peace and the love, and going through a review, a sort of a holding phase where they just need to reconsider the decisions they made that may have hurt you or someone else you loved who's in the physical world. And to some of us who grew up Catholic, maybe that second thing about the holding phase can sound like limbo, or I don't know what it's called. Purgatory? Is that what it's called? Is that the right way to? I'm not sure. I was never. I was raised in a Catholic school where it wasn't really talked about purgatory, limbo. But I feel like those terms have very negative connotations to them, and they're very sad. Like you're separate from God. There's no such thing as being separate from God. There is such thing as humans deciding not to be close to God, deciding not to align with God, with the universe. But God is always right there. God is within us. We can't escape it. We can't escape this energy. So we're never separate from it. It's just all about our awareness and the illusion that we're separate. So this idea of limbo, purgatory, those are not terms that resonate with me. So when I say this holding phase, it really is part of just the life review. When my grandfather passed in 2018, he passed on a Thursday, and I've shared this story before. And passed on a Thursday, and 3 days later on a Saturday, I saw the image of a man at the corner of my eye in the laundry room of my then building. And this image of this man was all gray and black. But it didn't feel evil. It didn't feel sad. It felt very neutral. And when I looked up, this was all happening within a split second, by the way. It was like so quick. I look up, and he's not there anymore. And I think it was my grandfather. I really do. At the moment, I didn't know, or I didn't think like who that was. I also thought I was just seeing things. But I feel like it may have been my grandfather, and he was in that holding phase. And a friend of mine I used to have, who is a medium, she told me that he was, a couple weeks after his death, she told me, yeah, he's in this phase of a life review right now. And that totally resonated with me. Totally did. So I believe that's possible, that we can go through a life review that on the physical plane seems to take a little while. But in the spiritual world is like a split second. It's all happening at once. Now, when it comes to signs that spirit can send us after they die, after your loved ones pass, it can be immediate. I shared the story before of my grandmother coming to say goodbye to my mother the night within an hour of her passing. My grandmother passed on very, very late at night. I think a couple years ago. Now it's a couple years ago. And my mother told me that as we were waiting for news about my grandmother, my mother heard the sliding glass door blinds shuffle, I don't know what the word is I'm trying to find, move. And she thought, oh, let me get one of the dogs, only to remember that she wasn't dog sitting my brother's dogs. There were no dogs in the house. And the AC is never that strong in my parents' house, ever, to do that to the blinds. So she thought, oh, I wonder if that's spirit. I wonder if that's, her, my grandma. And then she learned that my grandmother passed. So I believe that was my grandmother telling my mom, thank you and I love you and goodbye. And I'll see you soon, that I'm around. Spirit is immediate. Spirit is just there, free. It doesn't matter the geographic distance. It doesn't matter, we could be in a state of shock, a state of grief, a state of just feeling absolutely insane because we just lost someone we love so much. Spirit is there no matter what. And when I've been asked, how long after someone dies should I get a mediumship reading, I always tell people maybe wait 2 months. The reason I say that, it's not because spirit needs the time. It's because I believe the person needs the time. The person in the physical world needs the time. Grief is such a strong emotion, it's such a strong state of being that in a state of grief, we could be like, I could be in a state of grief and I want a medium to say that my mother's favorite lipstick is in my pocket. And I'm so focused on just that. And if a medium tells me other things about my mother, I may, honestly, grief can do this. I may not even acknowledge those other things because I'm so set in my grief on one specific thing. And it's not to a person's fault. It's not because a client is, it's not their fault. This is their grief. But I think it's best for someone not to spend their hard earned money on a medium so quickly after somebody they love passes, because they may not get the full experience that they really deserve because they're in the midst of their grief. Now, grief doesn't just go away in 2 months. Grief is a journey. It's in waves. But I think after some time, it's a little bit easier to understand the things being said by a medium. Not understand, to digest and absorb. Now, my mind may change about that too, because I do believe spirit does the wonderful things that it can do immediately after a passing. And maybe a part of me just gets nervous. Like, what if I were to read for somebody within 2 weeks of their loved one passing? That's so much pressure on me that I'm putting on myself. And maybe that's the part of me that wants clients to wait 2 months. But for now, that's my highest recommendation. And also, I think it's just the ethical thing for me to do. I feel like I'm taking advantage of somebody's grief if I'm reading them right after someone passes. But that's for another podcast episode, this topic. But the fact of the matter is, your loved ones are there ASAP after they pass. They're there with you. And for many of you, you have felt your loved ones passing. You have felt something when they've passed. That's their energy. And it's real. I promise you it's real. And it's a sad, it's a difficult, and it's a beautiful experience you get to have. For other folks, their loved ones may come in dreams. It's very common that loved ones will say goodbye in their dreams, and then we learn that they passed. That happens for many people. Doesn't happen for me. Happens to someone in my family that I know. And maybe it's happened for you. And when a dream feels so real, I believe it's a visitation. A colleague of mine shared with me that they had a recent dream with one of their grandparents, or both of their grandparents. And they said, like, Juan, it felt like we were having this conversation. It felt so real. And I told them that seems like it was a visitation. They said, yeah, I think it was. So spirit can show up that way too. Spirit may show up for you. Maybe it's not them moving the blinds of sliding glass doors or in a dream or moving through your body. Maybe it's in a sign you see out in public that's very bizarre, that you wouldn't expect to see out in public. And that's them. That's them sending a sign to you that they're okay. Spirit can work in many different ways. We just have to be open. We have to be open. And that's partly why I say after someone passes, I don't believe it's the best idea to see a medium immediately. Because we're not as open. We're so in our grief and we're so sad that it's hard for us to focus on many things in life, let alone like our jobs. It's hard to go back to work after someone passes and to focus on what's in front of us at work or the commitments we have or the responsibilities we have when we're so grieving and we're not as open. And that's just natural and human. I'm not judging that. That's normal. And we should go take as long as we need to go through that process. But once we do have a mediumship reading, or once we, when we want to see signs from our loved ones, whether it's the day after they pass or later, it's important to be open to whatever way Spirit needs to show up for us. So I hope, Josie, that answers your question, as well as for others listening, answers questions that you may have had. And feel free to send me questions about anything at all that you want me to answer on the podcast. And let me know if that group mediumship reading is something you would like to be a part of for the podcast as well. God bless you all. Sending love to all of you. Take care. Follow the podcast and please leave a review. If you want me to talk about a specific subject on the podcast or you have a question for the podcast, go to juanfranciscospirit.com and go to my contact page and submit that question.